Shalom Israel, it's your brother Benayah Ben Israel, and in this episode of Hebrew Israelite Research, we'll review our video, Meet the Indians. Now just for a bit of background information, the intent of the Meet the Indians video was simply to show illustrations of how the Indians looked according to first-hand accounts. However, little did I know that the topic of Indians and Israelites was such a hot button topic. So with that in mind, we'll take a closer look at the American Indians, Israelites, and giants. Now, we won't go into great detail about the different types of Indians. However, we will give a brief high-level overview of the different types of Indians. For example, our first type of Indian are the Mongoloid type of Indians. And you can find this phenotype or this type of Indian in the Meet the Indian video. In general, these Indians are dark-skinned, they have straight hair, and they usually have Asian features, similar to the Eskimo. This type of Indian or American Indian is well documented. All right, now our second type of Indian shown in our Meet the Indian video are Hamitic Indians. Now these Indians are also dark-skinned, however, they have woolly hair and they usually wear little to no clothing. And their features and customs appear Hamitic. And then the third type of Indian, and apparently the most controversial, is the Israelite Indian. Now this phenotype is also shown in the video. Now these Indians are dark-skinned, they are clothed, and usually their clothes have fringes, and they usually practice Israel-like customs. In fact, early writers wrote various theories regarding their origin in the Americas. For example, we can find these theories in John Ogilby's book. And let's take a look. Now on page 27, and this is John Ogilby's book of America being an accurate description of the New World. So on page 27, a little ways down from the top, it reads, "Some would derive the Americans from the Jews, others from the 10 tribes of Israel, carried into captivity. The ground of which opinions is that the Jews and Israelites were scattered amongst all the nations. Therefore, they conclude that America was also peopled by them, the rather because the ancient Jews and Americans were of one complexion. In other words, they were both dark-skinned, and went a like habitat, or in other words, they dressed the same, both going without shoes, onely wearing sandals, and an upper coat over a short linen vest. Both are humble, quick of apprehension, and obliging yet valiant. But it is certain they cannot be like the Jews, because the Americans change their habit according as they live in cold or hot countries, and go not in the least like one another. All right. So that's one example of an opinion of the origin of these Israelite Indians. Now let's turn the page and read a second opinion as to the origin of these Israelite Indians. And it reads, a small seeming testimony is added, being taken out of the 4th book of Ezra, that the 10 tribes of Israel that were carried away by Salmanassar with their king Hosea to Nahala harbor, the river Gozan, and the cities of the Medes might be acknowledged for the first planters of America, concerning which Ezra says thus, the 10 tribes brought over into another country consulted that they should forsake the multitude of the heathens and travel to a remoter country where no generation of mankind had ever lived before. There they would maintain their laws, which they had not observed in their countries, whereupon they went thither through the narrow entrances of the river Euphrates. For the Almighty stopped the veins of the river till they were passed over. For through the country was a way of a year and a half's journey. Wherefore that tract of land is called Azarus. Then they lived there till the last time. All right, so I won't read the rest of that. You can read it if you want. But this is just another example of an opinion of the origin of these Israelite Indians. Now let's read a third example of an origin of these Israelite, and it reads, Emmanuel de Moraes, who had gotten peculiar knowledge of the Americans by his long conversation with them, judges that they are not derived from one people, but from the Carthaginians and Jews, and that at several times the places they landed in this new world, for the Carthaginians sailing thither found the soil so fertile that many forsook their native country to dwell there, whereupon it was forbidden upon the pain of death to send no more thither, lest if Carthage should be invaded by a foreign army, it should want people for a home defense. For this occasion it happened that those that were already transported became rude and of salvage disposition, and spreading their families planted the desolate countries in ranging manner, without acknowledging any supreme head or government. Thus, being scattered up and down, everyone invented to himself a new language, which should neither agree with the Carthaginians or any other. But this opinion is before at large contradicting. All right. So you can at least see that there were many different theories or opinions as to explain these Israelite Indians in the Americas. So make no mistake, they were in America and people were writing about them. So let's do a brief recap of what we've learned so far. So we learned that the Americas had the Mongoloid type Indians who were dark skinned, had straight hair, and usually had Asian features. And then the second type of Indian we talked about were the Hamitic type Indians. Now, these Indians were also dark skinned. However, they had woolly hair. They usually went about with little to no clothes, and their practices were Hamitic in nature. And then the third type of Indians we reviewed were the Israel type Indians. And these Indians were dark skinned, had woolly hair, wore clothes that resembled the Israelites, and practiced Israel-like type customs. All right, so those are the three types of Indians that we've reviewed so far. However, let's move on to our fourth type of Indian that's covered in the Meet the Indians video. Now, the fourth type of Indians are giants. That's right, I said giants, and we'll read about it. Now, both the Native American Indians and the European explorers Both either wrote or spoke about these terrifying Indians. The Europeans called them, and I'm going to butcher this name, but I'll give it a try, Guayamures or Aymures. Now let's take a look at a few references. And it reads, it says, moreover, the Peruvians themselves give some small testimony in their ancient records of a few that landed of old upon their coast, which were, as they say, mighty and cruel giants, committing much bloodshed, slaughtering the natives everywhere, and having subdued the whole country, built stately edifices, of which remain yet the ruins of some foundations, very artificial and costly. They also showed near Manta and Puerto Viejo many huge bones, as they believe, of giants, 3 times longer and thicker than an ordinary man's. All right, so let's go on to our next reference, which reads, 7 leagues farther in the country, beyond the town of Isleos, lies a nameless lake, 3 leagues long, as many broad, and above 10 fathoms deep, and full of the fish manati, which are very large and well tasted, besides abundance of crocodiles. And in windy weather the water is as rough as if it were in the ocean. Out of this lake flows a river, by a passage so narrow that a boat can scarce pass through the same. Round about this river live the Guayamures, the most savage people of all America. They are of a gigantic size, have white skins, carry exceeding great bows and arrows, live without houses like beasts, devour men's flesh like tigers, never fight in companies or armies, but watch to surprise a single man or beast. They also eat their own children, and possessed formerly all the land from the river Saint Francisco to the promontory Frio, but beaten from thence by the Tupinampas and the Tupinichas. They went to the country of Los Isleos, which they invaded in such a manner that the Portuguese were not only forced to leave their sugar mills, but also the whole country. To put it into perspective, these giants were driven out by other Indians or other people, that they came into the region where the Portuguese were, and it forced the Portuguese to leave their sugar mills because of these giants. You can see the Guayamures on the screen. Now let's read an additional references about these Guayamures. And it reads, in the course of his presentation of ethnographic material on the whole American continent, the Dutch traveler J.D. Layet refers to a Brazilian people, the Aymures or the Guayamures, as the cruelest savages of all Brazil. He defines their nature according to the following criteria. They eat their own children. They eat embryos, tearing them from their mother's womb, and they hunt men like animals. The limit nature of Aymures is thus defined in economic terms, their mode of hunting, dietary terms, their diet of human flesh, and social kinship terms. They negate the bond between mother and child. In their hunting practices, they resemble animals. They are clearly and uncontroversially human, but at a level of humanity which is very close to animality. This Brazilian people turns up again as Guayamures in the work of another Dutch writer. He states that they are the wildest people of America. He states they have gigantic bodies, white skin, enormous bows and arrows. They have no habitation and live like beasts under the blue sky. They eat human flesh like tigers. They never fight in groups or armies, but each of them is on the watch to catch a man or beast unsuspectingly. They even eat their own child. In essentials, Montanus's picture of the Gayamures is very close to that presented by de Layet, though he adds the details on their stature, skin, and weapons. Their disregard for social bonds is expressed in different terms. This time, it is emphatically pointed out that they operate singly and are unable to cooperate. The lack of cooperation and the permanent state of warfare among themselves as well as toward the outside world is a feature already singled out by Jean Delisle a century earlier. In his account of what were of him the limit of the human race, a Brazilian people whom he calls the Auteca, they go about naked. They are hostile to one another and to outsiders. They are very fast runners. They eat raw meat. They have an incomprehensible language, and they are the most cruel, barbarous, and feared people of all America. And on to our next reference about these Gayamures. And it reads, Porter's knowledge of the Gayamures would most likely have been acquired by reading the accounts of the Dutch traveler Johannes de Layet. Porter paints a grotesque picture. The Gayamures were cannibals. They devoured their prisoners taken in battle, to their idol Maruka, occasionally sacrificed even their infants. Armed with ponderous clubs and poisonous arrows, their naked bodies besmeared with the juices of plants and rendered hideous by strange punctures, their long black hair flying loose over their bodies. These tremendous savages would issue from the woods, yelling like beasts of prey, and falling on the plantations of the Europeans, would fire their sugar mills, slaughter the inhabitants, make horrid banquets upon their quivering limbs. So again, you can see that these Gayamures, these giants, attacked the sugar mills. And that's why the Europeans knew about these Gayamures. Alright, well, hopefully this video has helped to clear up some of the confusion surrounding the different types of American Indians, such as the Mongoloid Indians, or the Hamitic Indians, or the Israelite type Indians, or even the Gayamures, who were also called giants by the European explorers. Just know that there are different types of Indians in America. And with that in mind, you are now ready to view the Meet the Indians video. The video will play in its entirety within a few minutes within this video. And feel free to leave your thoughts and comments and opinions in the comments section of this video. And also a quick thank you to those that continue to pray for me and my family, and also who pray for the redemption of the children of Israel. May we be returned to our homeland soon. And also a big thank you to those who continue to donate, as well as to those who share these videos with families and friends. And without further ado, let's meet the Indians.